The title of this morning's discussion, I had two working titles: "Do It Now" or "No Time Like the Present." Of course, this morning we all had to get up a little bit earlier than normal. We lost 1 hour with daylight savings, or the end of daylight savings. I always get the beginning of daylight savings and end of daylight savings. All I know is spring's around the corner and we had to move our clock forward 1 hour. Which, hey, spring's almost here. Woohoo! Lost an hour of sleep. Bummer. Um, which, of course, draws the question, how much longer are we going to continue with this daylight savings thing? But I digress. In preparation for this morning, I was thinking about the fact that it is, the whole daylight savings time, and really time was what was on my mind. And my thoughts went back to really one of my first jobs out of college, many moons ago. I won't say how many. I don't want to age myself too much. I know some people are making faces at me. But I was working at uh, a nursing home up in North Philly, and I remember was having a conversation with a woman there, one of the residents, and her and I, we got to be pretty close. And one day, and I don't remember what even spurred the conversation, we were talking, and this was, for me, this was pre-family, pre-marriage, all that. I was, um, at that time, I thought I was going to be a lifelong bachelor, but God just hadn't introduced me to my future yet. And I was talking to this woman, and she started talking to me about what I wanted to do in my life. And she and I just and it's just, when you have, I don't know if anyone's, I'm sure everyone's had this, there's those moments, and there's those moments in time where you're talking to someone, you can close your eyes and it's like you're there. You can hear their voice. You remember that moment. And that was one of those moments. And she said to me, whatever it is that you want to do, don't wait. Do it now. And she then proceeded to share with me about her husband, and how her and her husband had all these dreams of all these things that they were going to do together once when he retired, and they saved up all their money and they had these wonderful plans, and they were going to do this and that and everything else. And she said, James, we never got to do any of those things, because shortly after he retired, he got sick, and all of our money went towards that. I spent all my days taking care of him. Then he passed away, and here I am now. And it was one of those things, again, that moment was seared into my brain. And she said, whatever it is you want to do it now. Don't wait. And I've always taken it as sound advice. Now, I'm not going to claim that I've always followed that advice and lived my life that way, but I do try to remember that. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't plan for the future. I'm a firm believer that we are to plan for the future. There's an old expression, live every day as if it's your last, but plan to live forever. And the reality is that it's so easy to say one day, to say, oh, I'm going to. Whether we're talking about big things or little. Putting off till tomorrow is a bit risky because, let's be honest, tomorrow may never come. And even in little things, I know for myself, for example, even if I'm at work, if someone comes to me and says, hey, James, could you do this, that, the other? And I consciously, and not going to say that I'm always good about this, but I try my best to say, okay, let's do it right now. And when they say, oh, no, I don't want to, if you have other things to do, you don't have to do it right this moment. And I typically say, well, listen, here's how it's going to happen. I either do it right now or I will forget and it just won't happen. There's something about doing things right here at the moment. And so I was led to Isaiah chapter 55, verse 6 through 9. And it was really right there in verse 6, right at the opening of today's reading, that I think is kind of the heart of what I was led to reflect upon. And it says, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Now, I'm sure there's probably, from a theological standpoint, a lot of different ways that we could interpret today's scripture. But what strikes me about that is the immediateness of it. And I think about our walk with God. And I have to ask the question, not accusingly, but reflectively. How many things in terms of our spiritual walk do we have a tendency to say, I will, as opposed to, I do now? How much do we say, Lord, this is how I'm going to do it in the future moving forward, as opposed to, Lord, this is what I'm doing right now. In the Wesleyan denomination, we do a lot with the process of sanctification. Which goes back to, of course, the holiness movement. And I don't want to bog down with history or anything like that. But are we actively seeking the Lord in the moment we're in? What I mean by that is, think about this. What does it mean, the process of sanctification? What does it mean to seek holiness? What does it mean to walk with Christ? Think about a week ago, I think it was last week, I mentioned that when we walk with Christ, we're walking with Christ, which means we're leaving something behind. You can't go forward without leaving something. But as we walk with Christ, it means that we have to be present in that moment. We have to be walking with Christ now. If we reflect upon the need of God in our lives, unfortunately, I think that for many people who even acknowledge that they need God, and I think to a certain extent we all know that in our heart of hearts, even people who say they don't, in their heart of hearts, I think they do know that. Question is, what are you waiting for? The time is now. In verse 7, it says, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him turn to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon." He will abundantly pardon. We think about what that means. And again, and this is a little bit of a throwback to what we had discussed last weekend. Notice that it says, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him turn to the Lord." That turning to the Lord and forsaking wickedness is one and the same. It's not forsake your way and then eventually turn to the Lord. It's let the wicked forsake his way, let him turn to the Lord. And we know that when we do that, God will have compassion, that there is a pardon. So why wait? Why is it that people wait? Whether it's the future Christian or the current. I say future current because I don't want to say unbeliever. We need to stop looking at people as unbelievers. We need to look at them as future believers. But even within our own walk, what are we waiting for in all aspects of our lives? We need to be turning to the Lord every moment, every step of the way. This is not something that we should be getting around to. If we think about the whole New Year's, and I know we're already 3 months into the New Year, so maybe it's a little bit late for me to reference New Year's resolutions, but I will anyway. What is it that we do? We think about New Year's resolutions. Oh, my New Year's resolution going into this new year, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Why wait? Why Friday night? We say, oh, Monday morning, I'm going to start that new diet. Yeah, sure. I'm going to start on such and such date doing this. Why not right now? And the importance of that is that I believe unless we do it right now, we risk not doing it at all. If we're struggling with something, why do we hesitate to hand it over to the Lord? Shouldn't we hand it over right at that moment? So often we want to do it on our timeline. But there's a huge problem with our timeline, and that's time. We don't have much of it. We have a finite amount of time. And we usually have less time than we think we do. I think time in plans is much like hiring a contractor to do a project for you. No offense to my contractor friends, but let's be honest. Whatever you're quoted, know it's going to take twice as long and cost significantly more. I say that tongue in cheek, but at the same time, we've all been there. Because curveballs happen, don't they? We think we have all the time in the world, but we don't. We need to do what we have to do right here, right now. And the silliness of this comes down to this. Again, in verse 7, let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. That's a promise, not a gamble. I'm going to say that again. That's a promise, not a gamble. If you were told that if you that you have, let's say, 75% chance of winning big by doing X, Y, and Z, 75% chance, what would you do? What if you were told you had 80% chance? 90, 95. What if you were told you had 100% chance? We're being told we have a 100% chance that God's going to forgive us. We have a 100% chance of redemption. Literally, what do we have to lose? Condemnation, sin, hell. I'm okay with losing those. With everything to gain. We have a promise that can be delivered right here and right now. Not eventually, not in the future. Right here, right now. And why is it? Back to 6. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Do it now while you can. Because we don't know what the future holds. There's only one being that knows what the future holds, and that's God. Verse 8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither your ways my ways, declares the Lord. And thank God for that. It's a good thing God's thoughts are not my thoughts and his ways are not my ways, because, man alive, we'd be in trouble. But it's difficult for us to understand what God's thoughts are and what God's ways are. We cannot predict them. We cannot know. We can speculate. We have maybe some inklings, maybe some insight. That's about it, at best. Verse 9, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what's around the corner. A lot of people like to speculate about end times, when Christ is coming. The reality is we don't know. And even if we did know, and this kind of always puzzles me. Even if, hypothetically speaking, let's say you did know when Christ was returning, there's no guarantees that you're still going to be here when that happens. So what does it matter? It strikes me that it's not what's in the future that's the most important. It's the decision you make right now. Now, what lays before us in the future should be what motivates us for what we do right now. Absolutely. But we can't wait. Because here's the stark reality of where we are right now. And that is, we can find the Lord right now. He is near right now. And so, to anyone who needs Christ in their life, He's here right now. Anyone who has something in their life that needs to be handed over to God, He is near right now. What the future holds, I have no idea. Not even going to pretend to know. But what I do know is right here, right now. The Lord can be found at this moment. God is near right now. So let us all forsake what we need to forsake. Let us turn to him now, for his compassion is real. We are abundantly pardoned. But we need to do it now, because there's no time like the present. Amen.